You ready to go?
Just one more minute.
I'm really excited about the next few episodes we're going to do because I get to take a fun trip down memory lane, and co-host Chloe gets to tell us all about a wonderful set of books from the perspective of a kid.
Just one more minute.
As a parent, it's really interesting to see kind of what things from your own childhood that your kids end up liking. A lot of the TV shows from when I was a kid were really, really important to me, and some of them my kids have enjoyed. I remember during lockdown, I introduced my daughter to Gilligan's Island and the old 1966 Batman series starring Adam West. Because those came up a lot on reruns when I was a kid. So even though they were much older shows than me, it was still really common to see shows like I Love Lucy, Gilligan's Island, Batman, even like the really, really old black and white Superman series. There were also a lot of the good cartoon shows, but it's been interesting that some of them my kids have really liked, and some of them they're like, I don't get it. Also, it's totally fine that they have their own things. New shows have come along and they've gotten into those, and I can see why they like them. But it's been really fun to see that my daughter loves the old American Girl books every bit as much as I did.
The American Girls were first introduced in the 1980s, the olden days, when my mom was a kid. They told the stories of 9-year-old girls at a different time in American history. They didn't try to teach a whole history lesson, they just showed how one girl could have lived at a moment in time. But I actually have learned a lot about the past from these books. Mostly, though, I love them because the characters feel like real people who could actually be my friends in real life.
And I felt very much the same way when I read them back in the olden days. In fact, when I was a kid, I had one of these dolls. I had a Samantha doll, and she had this dress that's here in the book, and that's...
Wait, I have a doll. I need to go get it.
Okay, she's going to go get her doll.
Got them.
In fact, she doesn't have one doll, she has two. We have Kit, and this is the doll who lives during the Great Depression, and I believe she lives in Ohio. Is it Cleveland? Cleveland, Ohio? Cincinnati. Apologies to anyone from Ohio. Yes, so this is Kit from the Great Depression, and then this is Elizabeth, and she's the best friend of Felicity, the one who lives in colonial Williamsburg. Her books are set in 1774.
She's actually from England.
Well, her parents are from England. Was she born in England? Well,
she was born in England and moved to America.
Oh, okay, but we will get to her later because we're going to cover Felicity's books in another episode. But for now, these dolls can join us. Have a seat, ladies. Okay, but today we're going to talk about Samantha. And I really mostly wanted to turn this conversation over to Chloe. I have some questions for you, but I really want to hear from you about what you liked about these books, what you learned about American history from reading them, and maybe any questions you have. The first question I have for you is, out of the 6 stories that are told about Samantha in this collection, which one of them is your favorite?
It's the 4th one.
The 4th one. Isn't that her birthday?
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, the 4th book is always birthday. With these early American Girl books, I mean, fans of the books will already know this, but some of you may not have read these. There were 6 books in the old original series, and it started out with Meet Samantha or Meet Kirsten or Meet whoever. And then the second one was a school story. And then the third one was a winter story? Christmas story, that's right. And then the 4th one was a birthday story.
Yeah.
And then...
Which is always in spring, and my birthday is
that's
in
right.
spring.
Yeah, all the American Girls, they all have birthdays in the spring. And then there's a story that's kind of an adventure one that's set in the summertime. And then the last one was always called Changes for So-and-so. So Changes for Samantha. And that one kind of wraps up the story and sort of, sets her off on the rest of her journey that you can imagine for yourself. So happy birthday, Samantha. All right. So it's this one here. Happy Birthday, Samantha, a springtime story. All the early American girls had birthdays in spring. And oh man, you know what? It's funny because I see these pictures and they take me back to the days when the American Girl catalogs would arrive at my house. They were I told you about them before, these big, beautiful catalogs, and they had all the things. You could get that, and you could order that dress for yourself and get the crown of roses. You could dress like your doll. See, you're interested now. But yeah, it was, oh man, that takes me back. Okay, so what were the things that you liked about this story? So what happens in the plot that really caught your attention?
I want a puppy.
Oh, okay, there's puppies. We're not going to talk about whether or not we're getting a puppy just now.
Please. It'll eat all the crumbs off the floor. It'll keep my little sister from getting out of bed at night. You'll get better sleep. You won't be tired. We can all get family exercise when we take it for a walk.
Okay, we can't have this conversation just now, but maybe some of the listeners will have comments in your support.
Please,
Right.
please, please, please.
When Samantha has her birthday, what's the same as today and what feels kind of different?
Well, let's see. Every birthday I get woken up by my sister.
Samantha is woken up by her friends in the story.
I woke up pretty excited. I have a muffin for breakfast like her. And I had cake and ice cream like her, but they had to make their own ice cream. Mm-hmm. And the kid next door ruined their ice cream with salt. They had to try and catch the puppy who stole the teddy bear.
So in a lot of ways, life in 1904 isn't that different. Children still got excited about their birthdays. Samantha has a nice party with all of her friends. She has like a lovely tea party for her birthday, and the girls bring dolls, and then they have these nice little cakes. So instead of having a big cake, they had the little petite fours, like the small cakes. That's something you might still see at a party today. Sometimes people do cupcakes instead of one big cake. Kind of makes it a little easier to serve, and then nobody's complaining about who gets the biggest slice. In fact, you don't even have to slice the cake. I don't think you've actually gotten the chance to make ice cream before, have you? No, that's funny. That is something I did a bunch of times when I was a kid. Usually it would be done like, say, during the summer at grandma's house or like at camp or when we'd go to the beach. Maybe we should get an ice cream crank.
The ice cream flavor that I want to make is strawberry, raspberry, blueberry, grape, and the smelliest fruit in the world.
Durian, probably.
Yes.
I'm curious to know what the Samantha books taught you about the world of New York in 1904. So just tell me, I haven't actually spoken with you much about this before. What did you notice about this world, the way people lived, maybe like the level of technology or the way people treated each other, how different groups were divided up? Like, tell me just what you noticed about this world.
Well, there isn't any Taylor Swift.
Okay, there's no Taylor Swift.
The rich and poor are super, parted from each other. The rich people could be rude to the poor people. Not all children went to school. And your battery is low?
What did you think of the part of the story where Samantha finds out about Nellie's past? Like they're at school together and Nellie tells Samantha that she used to work in a factory with a bunch of other children.
So she worked every day but Sunday from 7 o'clock to 7 o'clock. And she worked with other children. She didn't wear any shoes because she had to climb on the machines. And also she told her that you had to cut your hair short, otherwise it would get caught in the machines. And once a girl had, long hair about as long as mine, she was just standing there. And then a second later, half of her head was bleeding and she was screaming.
Oh my goodness. What do you think about that? Could you imagine, how would you feel if that was your life?
I would want to leave.
Yeah, I bet you would. But what if that was...
I like my hair.
I like your hair too. But what if that was the only way for you to have a roof over your head and food on your table? That's what it takes to survive. What kind of life would that be for you? How would you feel every day?
I would run away.
You would run away, but where? Where would you go?
Nowhere.
See, the problem is, even if you tried to run away, you would probably get caught and thrown in an orphanage. So that's really, really different from today, right? It's actually illegal to make children work. I think children should learn to do work. They should help out with chores. And I even think it should be all right for a kid to go down the street to a local business and say, hey, can I make a little bit of money sweeping your floors or something? I think that would be good for them. But this kind of thing, children working in a mill, a textile mill, 12 hours a day, 6 days a week. Most adults don't even work that much anymore. What did you notice about the characters of Grandmary and Cornelia? How are they different from each other?
Grandmary is quite a rule follower, and she doesn't really like things to be changed.
And then what about Miss Cornelia?
She's like the opposite of her. She does follow rules, but she likes to change them up with her own personal tweak.
Would you say that Grandmary is too strict or that she doesn't love Samantha?
No.
No. So she's actually quite caring, but you're right that she's kind of a bit more just traditional. There's an old expression that goes, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And I think that kind of sums up how a lot of old people feel. But then specifically, what does Miss Cornelia want to change?
Rights for women.
The 19th Amendment to the Constitution gave American women the right to vote. It was passed by Congress in 1919, but it wasn't fully ratified until 1920. So if Samantha turned 10 years old in 1904, how old was she before she would have the chance to vote?
26.
That's right. So Samantha would have been 26 years old before she got the right to vote. Was there anything in the books that seemed unusual to you or that you didn't quite understand?
Yes, there was one that I didn't quite understand. It was where Jessie, the seamstress, was going away because she was going to have a baby, but she didn't tell anyone.
Yeah, things were a little bit different back then, especially if you were upper class. In the story, the family's seamstress, Jessie, suddenly disappears from work, and Samantha becomes very worried about her, and so she actually tracks her down at her house and finds out that she's had a baby. And of course, Samantha's delighted about this, and the baby's really cute in the picture, huh?
Yeah.
Very, very cute baby. In the past, especially if you were upper class, it might have been considered improper to talk about pregnancy. These days we get really excited. You'll see pictures on the internet. They'll do fun announcements. We're having a baby. You even get to see ultrasound pictures. Remember getting to see the pictures of your little sister before she was born? That was really fun. Back then, people could be a little uptight about anything to do with the body. And it was considered very inappropriate to discuss a woman being pregnant, which is really strange. That's all how we got here. This would not have been the case with, say, lower class people or working class people because they wouldn't have had this sense of, I'm so proper. The last question I had for you about the Samantha books is, what did you notice about the class system in the book? Do you even know what I mean by class system?
Yes.
Okay, so what did you notice about it?
When Samantha was actually going to find Jessie, she went into the black part of the village, and it wasn't very well kept. They didn't have big houses. They just lived in what looked like paper boxes. And the rich people, Grandmary, lived on a big hill in a big house. Mm-hmm. And the windows were filled with glass. Mm-hmm. So it showed that she was very rich. She didn't have to worry about anything, and she was just like, look, I'm rich. I'm living on a big hill in a big house.
Did you know that in this time period, the black people were not allowed to live in the same neighborhood with white people?
Yeah.
How does that make you feel?
It makes me feel kind of sad for them because, they are human beings. They're just different. We aren't all the same. Just because their skin is a different color, why do we have to be mean to them?
Well, I quite agree. There's an old saying that says, those who don't know history are doomed to repeat it. And what that means is if you don't learn about the past, the good and the bad, then you're probably just going to make the same mistakes that other people made over and over again. By studying the things in the past that maybe aren't so pleasant, you can learn about them and go, that's a terrible idea. Let's never do that again. Now, there's another character in the book who's quite poor. She's not Black, but she is Irish, and that's Nellie O'Malley and her two sisters. And they're orphans, and they had to work in the mills, and they didn't have a very good life, did they?
Well, they're orphaned inside the last book.
Oh, that's right.
Because the flu hit their family.
Yes, and so this was back before they had any of the kind of medications that we have today. So flu used to kill lots and lots of people back then. So even though Nellie, she's white, but it's important that her surname is Irish because Irish people were not treated terribly well either at this time. And just because they were Irish. So
I'm part Irish. I defend that.
Well, that's okay. You can heal the breach because you're part English and you're part Irish. But you notice, so Samantha's last name is Parkington, which sounds very British to me. So Samantha is coming from definitely a very privileged class. She has an English last name. She's rich. She lives in a nice house in the nice part of town. And then in contrast, you have little Nellie O'Malley, who comes from this Irish background. And just because of her background, just because of her name, just because she's poor, people are allowed to treat her like dirt, huh? How's Nellie treated by the other characters in the book?
Not very good.
Do people shout at her, or what do they do?
They make fun of her, and they also make fun of Samantha just for helping her.
Which is kind of insane, right? Like, even when Samantha wants to do the right thing, she's punished for that. Luckily, though, Nellie has a happy ending, and how do you feel about that ending?
I feel glad because Cornelia and Uncle Gard adopt her.
That's right. So Miss Cornelia and Uncle Gard, they get married and they adopt the three girls. The sad reality, though, is that most likely a girl like Nellie wouldn't have had that as an option. What do you think would have probably happened to her if she hadn't been adopted?
She would have been sent away on the train and probably had never seen her sisters ever again.
Yeah. And it would have been really common back then for poor children to be split up. Like if you lost your parents or if your parents were unfit to take care of you, the likelihood that your family would stay together is very low. How does that make you feel?
Sad.
Yeah. So the problems that we've looked at in this book, the way that people were treated just because of their skin color or their ethnic background or the fact that they were poor, these were problems that really, really bothered people. So in the Progressive Era, this was under President Teddy Roosevelt, and I believe his daughter Alice Roosevelt is mentioned early in the story. She's pretty cool. Yeah. She had a pet snake in the White House. She had a pet snake, and she did a lot of crazy stuff. In fact, snakes. I would love to see a novel for children that was about Alice Roosevelt because she was wild and crazy.
Chapter 1, I like snakes.
There you go. Maybe you should write it, The Secret Diary of Alice Roosevelt. During the Progressive Era, people decided, hey, maybe children shouldn't work 12 hours a day, 6 hours a week in dangerous factories. Maybe they should go to school. Maybe just because children are poor doesn't mean their families should be split up and the kids should be sent away. Maybe we should do what we can to keep those kids together. So the things that happen in the story where all three of the O'Malley sisters are adopted, where Miss Cornelia advocates for the right of women to vote in public, and then you had things like the fact that Samantha wanted to be friends with someone outside her social class in the first place. These are all really, really big changes. And in 1904, they would have seemed very controversial. Today, they just seem like commonplace, sensible behavior, right? Yeah, so I'm glad that you noticed all those things, and it seems like you picked up quite a little bit of the specks of history in the story.
I really like the Samantha books because I felt like if I could actually step into this book, I would feel like I was welcome by Samantha, and I would feel like she would be one of my friends.
That's a very good opinion of this character. I would say that that's very accurate because she's so friendly and caring and she's interested in other people. It doesn't matter if they're different from her, does it?
No.
Yeah? I think she also shows maybe a little bit of Miss Cornelia's pluck. I can think of one thing in particular that Samantha does that shows she's willing to break with tradition. Yeah. Can you think of what I'm thinking of?
Yes. When she doesn't want to wear her underwear.
Well, yes. So her long woolen underwear. It's not like underwear. But yeah, her
No talking about underwear on this show, Mummy.
Shocking. So improper. No, so in the book, Grand Mary expects Samantha to wear long woolen underwear to keep her from catching cold. But in the summer, it's quite hot and itchy. So what does Samantha do?
Take it off.
She takes it off. She says, you know what? I'm not going to do it. That's a good example, I would say, of how sometimes adults can stick to tradition and kids will go, but why does that tradition exist? And I really like that because that's an important part of moving forward as a society. Some traditions are really valuable. Some are well worth preserving, but some traditions maybe need to change with the times. And I think that that's one message that Samantha can take to all girls, whether you're an American girl or not.
Next week, we'll talk about Kirsten, a brave pioneer girl who lived in 1824?
54.
54.
That's okay. Kirsten's my favorite, so I'm really looking forward to that one. Thanks for watching.
Oh, she has long underwear on. I just noticed that.